Oh, it is great to be back in the black hole of real estate. And today, what I want to talk to you about are things like lifetime roofs and insurance and what is going on in those areas. It's a little bit more than meets the eye. And I want to make sure that I reach out and let everybody know what I am experiencing right now and what the solutions are when the trouble occurs. This is Ron Wojciechowski, your host at the Black Hole of Real Estate. And let's talk about lifetime roofs. There's definitely the 50-year metal roofs, and there's other architectural shingle ones that are supposed to last 30 years. And what we find are that they don't always last that long. The real big one in play right now is, some type of concrete roof. Slate is one we've come across recently. And 30, 40 years in to a slate roof that's supposed to be like a forever roof, sometimes between heat and expansion and contraction, they're cracking. And there's areas where the integrity is compromised. Maybe the underlayment is rotting out because there's wood underneath it, and the slate might be fine, but the wood isn't, and the water is somehow it's going to seep through there, and now you've got an active leak underneath the concrete, or maybe you've also got fissures in the concrete contributing to it. Well, this can be a big problem because in order to replace the boards, you got to get all that concrete off, which is heavy. It's expensive. If it breaks, it's hard to replace and match up, and it creates a real mess. And even if you can accomplish the goal of fixing the whole thing, chances are a leak is going to pop up in a different place. And what do you do about this? Well, a couple things. If you are on the selling side, selling a property or listing it, maybe getting in front of that with a roof inspection might really help to certify that the roof's integrity is in place, and getting the 4-point insurance done, inspection is good. That will help. Maybe it's one that the buyer could use as a reference and to get their insurance. So that's absolutely something you can do. Now, the other side of that is you may find out that this roof, is not what it's all cracked up to be, and maybe the owner of the property realizes that they're not going to have the widest pool of buyers with a roof that's compromised or some issues when they go to get insurance. So what do? Well, they can absolutely replace the roof. It's probably going to be expensive. There are some financing agencies that will put the roof on there and allow you to pay that loan off at closing without a prepayment penalty. So there are ways to get a roof on top through financing if that's what you want to do. And then you can offer the property on the market where it's fully insurable. The 4-point's going to look really good. The roof is going to be really good. And the widest pool of buyers, well, they're going to like that property a little bit more because it's one less big ticket item they've got to deal with. Sadly, not every person is going to be able to put that roof on or maybe qualify for the loan or even just want to do it, maybe due to time, circumstance, availability of materials, or availability of quality roofers. So a lot to think about on that side. And if we wanted to start with the end in mind, and we knew that the roof was 30 or 40 years old, that would throw a flag out to most people, most insurance companies. It's absolutely something that if you got in front of, you might benefit a lot down the road. So thinking about it from the seller's perspective, just pre-inspect and know that if it's a 30 or 40-year-old roof, even if it's lifetime, that may not be the case. Now, if you're on the buyer side of this, well, okay, you might get all the way up to the inspection date and see that, that nice slate roof on top of there is concrete or something like that, and think, wow, we don't have to worry about the roof because it's a lifetime roof. And then you get to the inspection and they say, well, the life expectancy of this roof is like 0 or 1 years. And you would look at the inspector like, what are you, crazy? It's a lifetime roof, except for, again, if there's some sort of leakage to the underlayment or cracks or fissures in this concrete, that presents a real problem. Now, you've gone in at a certain price. This means you've got to do a couple of things. You've just got to buy the home knowing that you got to have a big ticket replacement somewhere down the road for a roof that you thought was lifetime. You can attempt to renegotiate it. You may not lose the house over it, but you may have to put something in. You may not get all the money. If it's a $50,000 roof, is the seller going to give you 50 off for it? I don't know. Would they give you half? I don't know. But it becomes a conversation. So if you're showing a property with some sort of concrete roof, my take would be to ask the listing agent, I realize this is a lifetime roof, but has the owner explored the possibility that it might need to be replaced? And here's why. I think that's going to help you out. Be prepared that when you have the inspections being done, that part of that inspection is the 4-point, and that is what's going to be handed over to the insurance company. So it might pass everything, and it might be free of leaks, but just the age and the type of roof it is, the insurance company might raise a flag on that, and they may not want to insure it or make it a very, very high price, especially if there's any sign of moisture in those reports. So it's something that we really, really want to look at and make sure that if we're involved with something with a lifetime roof, let's make sure that thing's going to last a lifetime for the buyer, but also to make sure that they can actually get the insurance done. So that's a really big piece of what's going on today for things that are lifetime that, well, maybe aren't lifetime. Who knows? It's one of the things that I like to do in this podcast is to be able to help you see around corners and anticipate something that others might not feel is going to happen, yet here it is and it's going to happen. I think it's super important for you to be able to speak well about the roof and insurance that's involved in things that are lifetime. So what else am I seeing in the market? I'm seeing a number of people thinking of cashing in and just selling their house and being nomads and renting for a little while or traveling. And it sounds crazy, but the market's such that there's a growing number of people that have decided, I don't want to sell my home and buy another one, but I might want to sell it and not buy anything. And I might be willing to pay rent while my money's in the bank, making some really good returns that were never weren't recently available for 5 or 10 years because rates were so low. The savings rate's pretty good right now. The investment rate seems to be pretty good right now. While a lot of people are doing good in stock markets and other funds and things and bitcoins, depending on your risk tolerance, those might be really good options. But there's absolutely a growing number of people that are contacting us talking about selling their home and just cashing in and renting for a little while, or traveling for a year and not needing a place and putting stuff in storage. I also see a lot of people that are renting out their property. Get this one. They're going to rent out their property and go rent a different property. Yeah. Renting out their property. Maybe it's a bigger home and maybe they're empty nesters. The kids have gone to college, and then renting a smaller place, whether it's beachside or other place, or just super inexpensive, getting rid of a lot of the furnishings and possessions and getting super small. And if you can picture someone at 2,500 or 3,000 square feet and going down to 1,000, there's a big cost savings for them. Somebody's still paying off the mortgage. They can eventually move back into the home if they want to. But with a super low interest rate, they get cash flow off of the house. Rents have gone up. If they bought the home years ago with 2 or 3% interest rate, what we're finding is renting out the home they're living in, the profit is paying a lot, if not all, of the rent for the place they're downsizing to. It gives them a lot of freedom, a lot of flexibility. And yeah, it sounds crazy, but the double rent scenario is alive and well. So if someone comes to you and says, look, we're thinking of renting out our house instead of selling it, okay, so you're not going to represent them on that. Hopefully you've got some property management skills to keep them in the game, so when they eventually want to sell it, you're still there. I think it's important to keep in touch whether or not you handle the rental side. But then you're chasing rentals on the other side because now that we've done this, help me find a rental. It's a very different strategy than sell my house, help me buy a new one. And one's initially more lucrative, right? Selling and buy, getting two sides, maybe three sides of the coin if you bring the buyer to their listing, as opposed to leasing it out and getting a lower instant return, but maybe a better lifetime return. And in a market such as we're in right now, it might make sense to understand the dynamics of the rent situation that nobody's talked about for years. And now we're seeing it a lot. So not every seller is a seller in this market. And if they do sell and cash in, they may turn into renters. Some of those are going to see both sides of the proposition and realize that they can have a really big cash flow on the home they're living in, have someone pay down their mortgage, and then cover most, if not all, of the rental cost in a downsize. So there's a strategy you don't see very often. And if you play it right, you've got a renter in a home that's eventually going to buy. You've got a person who owns a home that might eventually buy. And then when it all changes, you've got a listing out there. So there's still three sides in there. If you believe in delayed gratification or you're working on a big sphere and database, those are future earning potential situations. If you handle them properly and do the right thing based on the client needs, you can absolutely find a win within this in the double rent scenario. So I hope that helped you out a little bit today about roofs, lifetime roofs, if you will. I'll put an asterisk on that one now, and then the double rent scenario. If you got questions or comments, please drop those below. Definitely subscribe. We'd love to have you back every week. This is Ron Wojciechowski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.